Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This show is airing on Christmas Day 2017, and I want to wish everyone celebrating Christmas a happy, healthy day filled with family, food, and love. And maybe you're like me and you still like to get a run in on a holiday, or maybe you have a long drive to meet your family. And I thought I would air some of the shows that I felt expressed particularly actionable lessons and insights in the last couple of years that we've been on the air here. So today I selected this show with Andrea Schumacher. Andrea talks about how she pre-qualifies clients before she decides to work with them. She talks about how she manages 25 projects at one time, and she talks about how her firm went to a whole new level after she read one of my particularly favorite books, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And she mentions how after reading this book, she raised her prices and then everything started to take off from there. This is a really terrific episode, particularly because Andrea is so transparent about some of the hard lessons that she learned, and she was honest about the fears that she's had along the way. But it's also a great show because Andrea has come through, and she is now busy, profitable, and enjoying the success that she has earned. So one thing to note. You will hear me mention how to get your free PDF of the things I learned from Andrea Schumacher. That link is broken. Okay, so the new link will be found. If you want your free PDF of the things I learned from Andrea Schumacher, go to luannigara.com/Andrea. So that's luannigara.com/Andrea. All right, so from here, I will air the rest of the show as it originally was on October in 2016. So have a happy, healthy, wonderful holiday.
Welcome to A Well-Designed Business with your host, Luann Nigara. Luann has a lifetime of experience building a multi-million-dollar business with her husband and cousin, and she knows the challenges you face in your interior design business. Luann brings you real-life answers to your most pressing problems, as well as practical strategies to explode your interior design business. So, let's get to the business of interior design.
Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. If this is your first show tuning in, thank you so much for showing up. I hope you do like it. You can get in and join the rest of us on this journey that we're on, interviewing all these amazing designers and industry people and business experts. And I have another one for you guys today. It's Andrea Schumacher of Andrea Schumacher Interiors in Denver, Colorado. Andrea started her company in 1999. She has a bachelor's in interior design from Colorado State University. She also earned a certificate in universal design from the Graduate School of Design at Harvard University, and she has master's courses in architecture from University of Colorado. Her experience ranges from both commercial and residential design, and unlike any of our previous guests, she has a particular experience under her belt. She was on set design for the television show The Days of Our Lives and with Columbia Pictures. And also in 2010, House Beautiful named Andrea Schumacher Interiors top 20 under 40 designers to watch in the country. So today I'm going to introduce you to Andrea. Here we go. Hi, Andrea. Thank you for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. So I'm was happy getting to know you a little bit before we started recording. You have a very nice business on your hands there in Colorado, and it's been an interesting 17-year career. And right now you are at the helm of a very, well thought out, well planned firm from the discussion that we have. And I'm very happy that we're going to explore this and share some of your things that you are doing with your colleagues. So before we begin, you have an 8-person firm, including yourself, and that you typically can have 25 to 35 projects in the pipeline at one time. And right there, I'm just like, oh my goodness, how does that happen? So give us a little rundown on the 7 other people that work for you, their positions, and then we'll start to get into how you actually are able to handle that many projects at one time, Andrea.
Sure. So we break it down by sort of senior designer is a project lead, and then junior designer kind of backs up the senior designer with any kind of help they need on a project. And I am involved by always doing the concepts. So, of course, every client, when they hire Andrea Schumacher Interiors, wants Andrea Schumacher. So that sometimes can make things difficult. So how I've made that kind of come true, and I manage expectations up front with the client and let them know that yes, you're going to get my concept, but you're not going to see me after that, basically through the whole project until the very end. And so I think managing expectations up front really help you manage your client, because otherwise they might think that they're going to see you this whole time, and then they get a little upset when they don't. So I think it's important to explain that you don't want me doing your heavy lifting for the higher hourly rate that I charge.
Okay.
You want me to do the concept. You want to pay a lot for that, because that's what you're calling us for. And then you want, at a lesser hourly rate, somebody running that project, making sure it's all priced out correctly, making sure it gets value engineered into a number that you're comfortable with, and then following through, installing all of that. You don't need me there to meet the wallpaper guy to put the wallpaper up. So that's one thing I sell the client on in the very beginning when they meet us.
So I'm going to tell you right off the bat, we've had several interior design business coaches on the podcast, and every single one of them has suggested that that's how you exactly do it. So, good for you, Andrea.
And it's funny. I didn't work for anybody else before I started my own business. In fact, I didn't mean to start my own business.
Oh, tell us about that.
Yeah, I was in school. I was getting my master's in architecture. And that's kind of a long story how I got there, but I was getting my master's in architecture, and it was during kind of the .com heyday. And I went to an event. I met this architect, and he was telling me how he had this client that needed an interior designer in San Francisco, and they were on a year waiting list to use an interior designer. That's how backed up everybody was.
Wow.
He said, you should meet them. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go out and meet them. So I did that. Met them, and then I decided to take 6 months off, a semester off, and do this project. And then I just thought I would go back to finish getting my master's. Well, that client turned into, just from a buzz that I was doing that, turned into another client in Denver. So I did that, and then I thought, okay, and then I just kept getting another client, and I ended up never going back to school. I ended up having my own business all of a sudden. And so I was sort of reinventing the wheel in a lot of ways. I did a handshake deals with everybody with no, contracts for a very long time. Wow. And then, I was doing it at a very low hourly rate. And then I met this attorney, and he said, why don't you do our law offices, and in exchange, I'll write you a contract. So we did that. So it slowly built into this firm that I didn't mean to have. And my husband, who has an MBA, always says, gosh, if you knew what it was like in school to learn about starting your own business, you would have never done it. And I'm like, you're right. I didn't know I didn't know the questions to ask doing it. So that's kind of how it happened to me. And I figured out my own systems on my own without people telling me, or watching another designer do it, which maybe has been good. And maybe I'm sure there's ways that took me longer than it would normally if you work for somebody else. But
that's pretty unusual. I mean, and like I said, I had no idea of that. We didn't discuss that prior. And the fact that you literally, as I said, run your firm exactly the way Krista Cooper says, Kay Whitaker says. Consultant after consultant has told us that that's what you need to do, and that you come by it not only with no experience working for another designer who you mirrored, but you didn't even, come by it by, because I've had designers that came by their processes that mimic that because they come from other fields. They come from finance, or they come from engineering, or they come from a business, background, or an advertising background, where they understood how business, quote unquote, any business runs, and then they just applied it to their interior design firm. But it's pretty crazy that you have it so locked down by accident, almost.
And we're always tweaking, don't get me wrong.
Of course.
We're always learning, we're always tweaking, and I think that's getting to be the fun part now. Is now it's like small tweaks rather than huge changes. But one of the biggest things I would say would, if I could, this is such a weird title for a book, but this really catapulted me from the decorator who was charging $80 an hour and would do anything to a true designer that had respect in town. Was I raised my rates significantly, and that was right when I did it was during the .com heyday. I did some projects, and then I read this book. This sounds so silly, called Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, no, not silly at all. Let me tell you, I read that book
you did? Okay.
25 years ago.
It changed
30
my
years. My
perception.
Kidding me? 40 years ago.
You did, yeah, it's been around for 50-something years.
Right.
It changed my perception on how to think about money and how to think about prosperity and how to think about living in a space where when you're afraid that fear will follow you, or when you have confidence that so whenever I feel like I'm shrinking or that something scary is happening to my business, rather than, oh my gosh, fire somebody and let's let go, I expand into it and spend money.
Good for you.
So that's the only, and it's really helped. And so not operating out of fear, if I could give one big, huge takeaway for everybody listening, would be, when you're afraid and when you start thinking, oh my God, I'm going to lose a client or this is going to happen, expand into it with no fear. And I swear it comes back tenfold.
Good for you. Good for you. I mean, we just had Marianne Cherico on Power Talk Friday recently, and she is a business coach, and she phrased it not you can either go out every day and you don't work to not win. In other words, do you know what I'm saying? Don't position yourself to not lose. That's what it is. Position yourself to win, not to lose. And that's the same sort of thing. It's like if you're out there every day and you're afraid and you're calculating things from fear and from lack, then you're operating every day not to lose. And that's completely different mindset as the what you just said, which is to not operate out of fear. You want to expect to do better. You want to expect to grow and you expect to have more clients.
Exactly.
Very good, Andrea. Okay, so we just hit like our little like moment there because now I know we're of the same mind. So you have this meeting with your clients and you set the expectations for them and you explain to them the sound business principles for these parameters. I mean, it's logical if you explain it to a client and say, do you really want to pay my hourly fee to meet the wallpaper hanger? Like, that's crazy pants, lady, right?
Right. You don't want me to do the heavy lifting.
Exactly. Right. Okay. And so when you have your meeting and you have your concept meetings, and what happens then? Walk us through the process with your client and your team so that somebody who's trying to visualize it can understand it.
And let me back up and say, managing expectations up front will save the entire relationship going forward. So we have a cheat sheet, and it's kind of like a diagram where it says, first question you ask is, have you used a designer before? If the answer is no, you go to the right and you have all these things that you want to explain to them. If they say yes, your next question is, okay, what was your experience like? What happened? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? And you get to the bottom of all those things so you make sure that the things they didn't like about it, you're not going to do.
Wow, that's also very clever.
You know what I'm saying? And if the answer is no, then you have a lot of education to bring them up to speed, to understand how it works. So, we have a cheat sheet that we just go line item by line item. This is before we sign the contract, and just say, you need to understand that you're following the wholesale process. You're not, this is not like buying a piece of furniture off the showroom floor and it comes to you and it's just perfect. Explaining to them that when you buy a piece off the showroom floor, you're not seeing that before it got to the showroom floor, that it got shipped from wherever, it got opened and uncrated, there was damage on it, they had to send it back, they had to bring, they had to touch this up, and then it finally gets out to the showroom floor. Right. They have to understand when you work with the designer, they're following that whole chain of processes. So we explain all of that so that there's no misunderstanding. We explain, that it sits in a storage, how we do it. I don't know what other designers do, but we try to do one big install. So everything we explain that it all goes to a storage unit. We explain the fees of it being there and the reasons why and why it's important to pay those fees, because they're the ones that check for damage. They're the ones that send it back. It's part of the process and it's important. And so we kind of give them just the behind the scenes education. So they're not like, well, I don't understand. I just bought a sofa and then you're tacking on, $35 for inspection, and you're tacking on freight, and you're tacking on. So the true price of the product that they're getting when they first sign off on it isn't really going to be the price. And they need to understand that, especially if they've never used a designer before.
Yes. I'm sure there's probably other designers that I've spoken to that maybe just didn't enunciate it, or they do similar but don't have it as clearly defined. But that cheat sheet is amazing. You know what I mean? Because I can visualize it, like, especially when you said, have you used a designer before? The answer is yes. Okay. How was the experience? Okay. It was good. What was good? It was bad. What was bad? Like you said, you're literally having them spoon feed to you exactly the things that please them and displease them so that you can hit those marks or miss those marks. I love it. It's very smart. Okay. So are you the person that runs down the cheat sheet with them?
No, I used to, but now that I have, my top management girl who doesn't have any design experience, which has been a lifesaver, she does all of that, and she's just so articulate and so good at managing people. She's the one that does that now.
Now, Andrea, is that part that is pre-contract? So is that part of the pre-dance altogether of where maybe you'll hire me, maybe you won't, or is it after they know they've committed to hiring you, but before you've presented contract? Like, where is that?
Before contract, and it's also us vetting them. I mean, if they say, we've been through 3 interior designers, all of them were terrible. All of these things happen. It's kind of like, whoa, okay, maybe you just can't be pleased, and maybe we're not the best person to work with, and we might pass on that project.
Right. Okay. I like it because you're frankly too busy to spin your wheels with somebody that has no intention of being pleased with the process. I mean, there are some people that have no intention of being pleased with the process. Whatever the process is, the process could be having a dinner in a restaurant, and they're just expecting to be, displeased, and that's, who wants to be around that. So right. I love it. Oh my goodness, this is so fun. Okay, so
we always say happy people make happy clients, and
It's just
finding out if they're just complaining, and they've been through several designers, then there's a red flag there.
Yes, and we have talked about that on the show before. How you have to identify those particular clients that maybe you want to gently say no or refer elsewhere. But a lot of times, if you don't have a mechanism that's very well thought out, like your cheat sheet, you might not really get all of that information and get that feeling, that red flag feeling, until after the agreement is signed. And then you're like, So you're really addressing a lot of terrific things from the beginning. Before we go on to the process after the contract is signed, are there other little items in that cheat sheet that are highlights, or did you hit them?
It's an ongoing thing. We keep adding to it. Like, we probably should have explained this before we got into the process. So, it's kind of it's an ever evolving, and sometimes it gets long and lengthy, and it honestly just depends on how you read the client. Do they need to hear more? Are they going to be easy? If they're going to be more difficult, but it's worth it, how much more do we explain? That kind of thing. So
yes.
It is kind of an ongoing mutating thing.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so now we have vetted our client. They decide they are in love with us, and we decide we're going to be in love with them. And you now have your concept.
Yes.
So you're the process.
Yeah. So then what would happen would we would actually kind of have a sort of a design charrette with the client. Maybe we would go to my office and sit where our library is and just get our juices flowing and start talking. Like, look, if it's a remodel, maybe looking at the plans and how we're going to remodel it, or if it's just fabric and furniture, we might sit down and put piles of fabrics that they love together, and just kind of get a feel for them. We might look through their house and their Pinterest and see the things they tagged and talk about why, and just get to know them, and then also just interview them and find out how they live. Do they have kids? If they do, how old are they? Are they going to smear peanut butter and jelly on the fabric? Mm-hmm. Sofa, or do they care? Do they want one room that's pretty pristine, or do they want their whole house to be able to be lived in and their kids can do whatever and they don't want to have to ever yell at them, so we're going to need to really have hardy materials, and so on and so forth. So we figure out how they live, and I'm there for that, and then we say goodbye, and we say, give us a couple weeks, we're going to wrap our minds around this, and we're going to come back with a concept. And still, again, that next concept is still pretty loosey-goosey. It's not like we have design boards and we've decided everything they should buy. It's more, okay, we found out what you need. We're thinking, here's your floor plan. This is how it's going to fit well. We already know you have these 2 chairs we're working with. We want to put them here. We want to recover it with this, but here's some other options. And then by the time they leave that concept meeting, we have a clear idea of what we're going to price. So it might be, okay, we're going to buy this 8-foot long sofa with these 2 chairs that you already have, and this is the rug we were thinking, the lamps, the lighting. I'm talking about a remodel here, not a new build, but
right.
Or like a fabric furniture situation. And when they leave, we have a pile of things that we're going to price. So then I'm condensing it. Obviously, there's a lot of ways this could go. But so they leave, and then we get to work, and that's when it goes into the project manager's hands, and they start pricing everything out. And we have a computer system that we use called Studio Webware. I don't know if you're familiar, but a lot of designers use it.
Yeah.
And enter everything into Studio Webware and create proposals. And then our next meeting would be, we would, print out a bottom line spreadsheet of the bottom line number. And what I've been trying to get clients to do is to not tell me their budget up front.
Okay.
I try to explain to them. I mean, we're not silly. Like, we're not. If someone comes in and they say, "Look, we don't want to go crazy. We'll have just a living room we want you to do." And if they want to tell us, "Hey, we're thinking 60," they can tell us that. But we really try to get them to buy into the idea of, let's design this room without really a budget in mind first, and just see what it would look like if we were to go bananas in here.
Okay.
And then let's price all that out, and then let's take away some things to still get that look. It's kind of like that magazine high-low. You've seen it where they have the high expensive room and the low room.
Right.
And so we kind of get our, minds around the idea of what this room really could look like with it all in. And then they come back and we say, okay, all in, this is a $200,000 room and your budget was 60. I think we can still do that, but we don't need a $250 yard on your sofa. I know exactly where we can find one that's still a print, that still has those same colors, but it's $60 a yard, and we'll swap that out. And we'll just start to go through the room sort of high-low and leaving some of the expensive things in there, getting some low things in there, and making it come out to be the 60 that they wanted. So that way, you have a design to adhere to. Otherwise, you're just like, I used to run around over town a long time ago and go, okay, doing this room, I need 36 yards of fabric. $200 a yard is not going to work in the budget. I'm going to need something that's 40. How do I find that? Oh, this coffee table is going to be too much. It was just such brain damage. This just simplifies everything because you have a design to work from.
Okay, so it's almost sort of like if you have done the creating, but it's almost as if you have done the creating through your conversation and through the interaction with the client and so forth, but it's almost like you're creating that picture out of Architectural Digest and saying, hey, Andrea, this is what I want my room to look like, and then you just sort of now back it all out and figure out what are the things that have to stay to keep the integrity of that design, but what can you let go of?
Exactly.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So that's how you approach it. And then, you can do that with construction as well. You can say, okay, here's my dream kitchen. And then you can walk backwards and say, okay, well, I guess we don't need William O's cabinetry, but let's find something that looks similar, but that costs us way less. And we can do this instead of that chandelier that's $20,000, we can find one for $3,000, and so on and so forth. So
now I have to ask, from a practical standpoint, I'm making an assumption that when you do that initial, let's call it the high presentation as opposed to the low one, right? When you do that initial concept of putting all of that together, you can't be actually sourcing the perfect $3,000 lamp that you really want. You're just saying, hey, I've got a library of things. I know this side of lamp would look good here. This sort of thing would look good here. And then when you get their buy-in on it and you all decide as a team with your client that, oh, that lamp is non-negotiable. I want that lamp or that chandelier. Then, because if you took the time to really source everything at the high, it's like double work.
No, we don't ever really source everything at the highest. I feel like we don't ever do that. I mean, it's not like I'm going to go on and say, oh my gosh, this $15,000 dining room table is perfect for you when I know their budget's 60. Like, I just, you're kind of keeping that in mind, but I'm just not.
It sounds like you're not emotionally attached to everything at this point.
No,
you're putting it together, right?
Yes.
You're not like, oh my God, we searched for this for 3 weeks and you don't want it. You're putting a look together.
It's like going into Nordstrom and you're trying to look for an outfit that you're going to, go out on the town in, and you find, the perfect legging that's going to go with a certain, skirt and this beautiful blouse. And then there's a vest that goes over it. And then maybe there's, the shoes that you want and then the earrings that you want. And then you price all of that out and you go, okay, well, I'm not buying real diamonds here. I'm going to get some hoops. You can kind of scale back once you find out that whole thing costs
I can get my leggings at
bucks.
Marshall's.
Yeah, you can $35 here. I'm going to Nordstrom Rack for that skirt. Right. You can,
exactly.
But you can still get the look. It's the same kind of idea.
I love it. And I would say that you probably upsell a lot from it. I would think that people reach
sometimes. But the thing is, truthfully, that is not why we do it. And that's, I think, why I gain trust with clients and people come back to me over and over again, is I truly come from the heart that I want them to get the most for their money. And
right.
if we have to reuse every single thing they have and recover it and make it work, I will.
You will.
And I really do want the best design, and that's why I think we're in business. And of course I'm here to make money, and of course I want to make profits. But if I make $10,000 less profit because I didn't upsell something, they're going to go tell their friends how awesome it was. It's worth it to me.
Absolutely. Well, you can't maintain your integrity if you only are upselling for upselling's purpose. There's no question. But I would say that sometimes people, like I have this conversation with my employees all the time when we go in to do custom window treatments. People will say, I don't really want this to be expensive. How expensive is it for a living room window treatment? You know what I mean? And I'm just like, I say to my employees, your word for expensive and their word for expensive are not the same word. You know what I mean? So just design something that's beautiful, that's functional, that is appropriate for their space, and, present it. It's funny because it's sort of the exact same thing that we do. Exactly. You know what I mean? So, but because you can't decide for somebody, if they even a client could say to you that their budget is $60, but if they fall in love with one particular thing and it makes it $63,000, that's their prerogative, Yeah. So, okay.
Or what sometimes can happen is they say, let's keep it at 60, but I know I'm going to buy these 5 things later.
Right.
And we'll get the big bulk stuff and they can,
Right. Yeah. They space it out over, I have a lot of people that I know that they do, a project every year on their home. So it's like, okay, I'll see you again next September, Andrea. Let's, take that next year and we'll add that. So, but you've planted the seed and you've let them see what the possibilities are for their room and what it could look like. Yes. Very nice. I like it a lot. And so now you have your team behind you that is running around now executing this project. Tell us, you alluded to the employee that does not come from the design field. Tell us about her and why she's important to you and what does she do for you?
She just, I never really looked at my books. I ran my business coming as a creative forever.
No.
And so I know. And
it's just
not, I know. And it's just was not my thing, is not my thing. And if I lost money, made money, it didn't really matter. I was just doing it out of what was the best design and the best thing. She's looking at the big blanket picture, the 5-year projections, the budgeting for the year, the numbers every quarter, just things I should have done but haven't done, and it's really made a major difference. So there's the business aspect of things that I hated about the business, and it was a huge leap for me to say, how am I going to pay somebody a big chunk of money to do this for my business and get away with it and still be profitable? But it's proven itself to be more than what I expected it to be.
Really?
Yeah.
So okay, so I hear that you were concerned about doing it, that you were worried about making the leap to do it. What prompted you to begin with to realize that you needed to do it? Were you finally aware that this is no way to run a business not looking at your books, or was there a crisis that happened?
There was a couple things. One was I had a terrible accountant for the first 12 years, and I just didn't understand my books. I had a girl that was doing all the invoicing. She wasn't a real bookkeeper. She was very particular, but not a true bookkeeper. So I made a couple changes there. I got an actual bookkeeper to help me. And the final moment, the blow in the face, was I got a phone call from my tax accountant, and they said, you owe $75,000 in taxes. And I'm like, I don't have $75,000 just lying around, So that was when I was like, all right, things have to change. Something has to change here. I can't manage my books and be a good designer at the same time. So that was my aha moment where I said, I'm doing something different. And kind of, the universe just provides for you in those moments. The girl that works for me is actually kind of a friend of a friend. She's actually my old partner who moved to New Zealand's best friend.
Okay.
And she had come over and we were chatting, and she was telling me about her job and what she did, and she'd been there for so long. And I was like, you want to make a job change? It's like, maybe. And so we just started talking, and that's how it came about. And it was I was nerve-wracked at first because the amount of money she wanted to do it was something I honestly hadn't made myself. What she wanted me to pay her was something it took me 10 years to make myself.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So I was like, wow, this is, it's hard for me when people ask for large salaries. I'm like, oh my God, I worked in a negative for 10 years.
Yes, it's
true.
It's yes.
Like, how can I pay you something that took me so long to get? But it's paid off, triple fold. So
Okay, let's break that apart now. So now you have the conversation with her. You recognize from your conversation that she's got skills and talents that you believe will help make your business more profitable despite not having design experience. And I'm going to tell you, I interviewed Barbara Patiri, and she said the same thing. She said, you don't need to hire. And a matter of fact, she advocates not hiring somebody with design experience to be your operations manager because she said a designer always wants to get out of that role and get into designing. She said, hire somebody who is an exceptional manager and understands the money and the books and is just happy to be in the environment of beautiful design. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, so now you have this conversation. You understand that she probably is very talented and that she could help you organize your business. But I'm thinking about, here you are, $75,000 in debt, and she hits you with a salary request that is, it, like you said, frankly, surprised you. So what did you do? You mentioned your husband has an MBA. Did you talk to him? How did you, it's one thing now, these many years later, to say, 3 years later, to say it has doubled and tripled my business. But how did you go from, okay, this just isn't a good idea, I'm going to do it? What did you do to figure that out?
I actually set it up so that she would be billable half the time that she was working. So she would have, more than one role to play. So not only would she be doing the business aspect, but I wanted her to jump in as project manager and make sure that the designers were installing correctly and that everything was running smoothly. So she would be a billable, asset to cover, and that would cover her salary just by a hair, but at least I knew she was covered.
Okay.
I did that at first just to test the whole thing out. And now she's, it's scaling back where she's really not billable and she's more just, business development and operations and all of that. So, but I did that just to cover myself, just because I was so afraid of what could happen.
Smart, very smart. Yeah. How did you think of that? You just thought of it like everything else. You just figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I try to I break things down. That's how I've always done it, is break things down into, okay, for every hour someone bills, I'm paying them X per hour, they're billing out at X per hour, that's my margin, and then what does it cost me to run the business, subtract it from that. And just, I can wrap my mind around it when it's smaller numbers than looking at large, quarterly or, yearly.
Very
things.
interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to take a break for F.I.D.E.R, Inc., and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the changes that she's brought to your firm, okay? Hang on one second. Sure. My great thanks to the featured sponsor of our podcast, F.I.D.E.R, Inc., featuring CuratedCravat.com. CuratedCravat.com is your go-to resource for the finest in lighting, bedding, pillows, rugs, wall accessories, and so much more. Do yourself a favor and visit CuratedCravat.com today to see what I'm talking about. And when you are there, be sure to get on the F.I.D.E.R, Inc. email list so you get all the latest news about all the newest pieces which are constantly being added for you to use on your interior design projects. You can also see the gorgeous rooms that have been curated for you by leading interior designers such as Elizabeth Lamont and Candace Olson and Denise McGahey, to name just a few. And once you try it, wait until you experience the simplicity of the ordering process. Design, click, delivered. It's really that easy. Now, just for you, listeners of the podcast, a gift from F.I.D.E.R, Inc. You get to enjoy 10% off any one purchase at CuratedCravat.com. Just enter the code CKPodcast at checkout and save 10% on the entire purchase. Isn't this so generous of F.I.D.E.R, Inc. to give to us? So now, go over to CuratedCravat.com today and see for yourself this valuable resource for you and your interior design business. So, Andrea, we're back. Tell us a little bit about Chandra and what does she do in your firm that obviously is, doubled and tripled your revenues. But give us some specifics on how she has accomplished that for you guys.
Sure. There's several things. One is that she's just looking at everything quarterly and making sure that things are closing and not dragging on as far as projects go. So, once a project has been completely invoiced out is when it hits the books. So she's making sure that our quarters aren't just jumping all over the place, that they're smoothed out. Closings are happening faster. She's making sure the girls are on top, because you could let things kind of just wait until, and kind of linger forever if you're not watching. So she's making sure things are moving faster, which just makes the client happier as well. And then she is also looking at the big picture, like how are we doing for the year? She also, say, for example, we have a $100,000 Cravat order. She might call Cravat and say, look, we're about to put in this huge order with you guys. Can you do anything else extra to give us a little bit more of a margin on that? Since it's such a big order, and she'll negotiate those deals. So that helps the bottom line. So that's not something I ever did or had time for.
Okay.
So that's big.
That's interesting. And so, so one of the things right there is somebody helicoptering over the business in the perspective of really, like you said, looking at what projects are potentially closing, and as opposed to just letting, the team slip and that project's going to go 1 month later, she then goes back and works with all the different designers and everything and says, tighten up, look at what you can do to make this install happen even a week or 2 weeks sooner. Is that what you're describing?
Yeah, or just making sure install happens within a certain quarter, so she can manage that rather than it pushing out into another quarter because, there was one thing that was out of stock and we're waiting for it. If she sees that, she'll go, let's reshop that. It doesn't need to, if something's not in stock and it's back ordered for 3 months and it's holding up the entire project, we'll reshop it and present it to the client and say, this could happen way faster.
Okay.
If we take this piece out and replace it with this piece. And so
as opposed to just like, that project's just sitting in limbo because of this one piece and everybody isn't even really paying attention to that.
Right, exactly.
Awesome. Okay. And what does she do? I should ask, does she do stuff with you for project development, for finding new business and putting new clients in the pipeline, or is that not her role and she only takes over once the client's in-house?
It needs to be her role, and we've talked a lot about it, but so far we've been so busy she hasn't had a chance. But that is something that we are going to start to do.
Is that what you do for your firm? Are you responsible for that?
Honestly, the truth is we don't do anything.
Okay, so your referrals.
So far we've done, I'm riding on the coattails of all the work I've done, prior, but, I can't even imagine right now at this point if we went out and actually looked for business. Of course it's going to get there. Everything goes in waves and right now, honestly, the truth is we're not looking for business. It just has been from the reputation that we have from before. But that being said, I know we do need to, and we have talked about it. We just haven't gotten there yet.
Well, I would say that if I were talking to somebody and that was the first sentence that they said to me, I would be like, honestly, I would say, you're kidding yourself and you're going to end up with no clients. But having discussed all the past 35, 40 minutes with you, I have got to believe that even though you're not out there drumming up new business, you're aware that your pipeline is well filled.
Well, at this moment, and who knows what happens after the election, right?
Yeah, this is true.
But we'll see. Yes, that's true. I think it'd be easy to go out and ask for business, and I feel like in Denver, we know all the builders and we keep in touch with them and that kind of thing. But the point is we haven't asked for business. It's coming our way, so we'll see what happens.
Right.
But I guess
what
something we're going to do.
Yes, I hear you, but I can't believe if between yourself and Chandra, you're literally looking out ahead to the quarters and what the closes are, that she sounds like to me that she'd be the first one to say to you, you have nothing coming in for the third quarter of this year. What are you doing? Like, we have to get this going on. So even though, you're in a fortunate position that you are, like you said, 17 years doing this. And it's like window works. I say it all the time. 7 out of 10 appointments I'm going to go on this week are my previous customers or referrals from them. So we still do actively rainmake and we do actively advertise and everything, because my husband's crazy and he's always sure that the next day is our last day.
I guess I can back up and say, what we do is we keep up on our portfolio. So every time a house is done, we go out and shoot it and we scout it for magazines and, we get it in and get it published. And so there's that aspect of.
Well, that is.
But yeah, sure. So there is some
Yep,
advertising.
that
happening.
is
Sure.
marketing and things
Yeah.
like that. And yeah, no, I knew that there had to be. You have everything else so well thought out. There's no way you're just sitting here thinking the 3 clients that I have now might be my last 3. There's no way. So, okay. And also too, what you explained earlier is that you have many more projects than that in the pipeline. And so even if there's 25 projects in the pipeline, that's a potential for 25 referrals right
Sure.
there. Even if every one of them only referred one person. So, and if only 10 of them referred one person, that's plenty of work for the next, several months going forward. So, okay. And any other particular things that I didn't think to ask about her and her position and how she has changed your business?
Question.
You said to me that I think it was off air, so I want to make sure I bring it into the conversation. You said that the first year she was with your company, she doubled your revenue. Is that what you told me?
Yes, and this year she's going to do the same. It's looking that way. I mean, it's headed that way. So,
Double and then double again. That's
yes.
Amazing.
It is amazing.
Okay.
It's
And
all from just looking at numbers and how can we rearrange this and that and make things go a little bit faster.
very exciting. And coming from that scary moment of, should I do this or should I not? Any other scary moments that you can think of that you had, can look back and say, well, I was a little nervous or afraid or concerned about doing this particular move, but I remember when I did it, XYZ, that you would share?
I touched on it, but I went from, I think it was $80 or $85 an hour to the next day when somebody called in, I changed it to $150 an hour. And that was in 1995 or something like that. And I just people will call and I just was like, I'm just going to test it out. And the higher I went, the more they wanted me. So it's this philosophy of like, oh, she's expensive, she must be good.
Exactly.
So not to be smoke and mirrors, but just, you're teaching the people that call you what your worth is. And if you tell them that if you lowball them and you're the cheapest person, why would they want you?
Exactly. We've had many people talk about that on the podcast. Jim Palmer was here on a Power Talk Friday, and he said the same thing. He said, nobody wants the cheapest guy. They don't. They just don't, because there's no value associated with it. So, and I was also talking with Natalie Riddell a couple of weeks ago as well, and, she was talking about, getting to the point of raising her fees and this and that, and I just said, stop it, do it. Stop it, stop. Yeah. You can do it today. You are Natalie Riddell. Do it today. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So, look, and of course there's an assumption behind that you are talented and that you do have the ability to do the project and you do have the ability to manage and run the project. Nobody is saying just go out and charge for something that you don't know how to execute. Right. That's of course silly. But we're more describing when you do have that ability and you do have a well-run business and that you haven't established your right value for it, that you're undervaluing your valuing yourself. And I also
something else to touch on that is once you do take yourself out of the herd and you're more expensive than everybody else, you better deliver 5-star service.
That's exactly
we talk about that all the time at our firm, and I talk about that all the time with the girls is, okay, so this is kind of something that I think is really 5-star service and something that everybody should do is we email our clients, every single one of them on Fridays, with an update of what we've done for the week. And we say, this is what we've done, this is how many hours we spent, and this is what we're going to do for you next week. And that way the client is the puppet master of the time that you spend, rather than just getting a bill at the end of the month, which is then you get all this pushback like, hey, I didn't ask you to spend 4 hours looking for a bench.
Right.
This way you're communicating with the client. And so then, we've had 0 complaints about time billing since we started doing this.
Nice.
And then we actually follow up with a phone call on Monday as a follow-up to the email on Friday. Because a lot of times I feel like email just is this ping pong game back and forth of, as soon as someone writes you write back, and then it's in their court, and then they have to write you back. It's better. Sometimes with one phone call for 10 minutes, it wipes out 15 hours of emails.
Exactly.
So it's connecting with the client, making sure that you're thinking about them. And, I also ask our project leads to, at the end of those emails, is to just say, hey, saw this, piece of art, thought of you, or just get a little something that means that you're thinking about them and that they're important.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right. What your point was that you made at the beginning of that was that when you are raising your rates, you have to come across with more value. You can't just, you have to know what you're doing. You have to be good at what you're doing. But the higher your rates are, the more value you bring to the package and the process. You can't just charge more and give, you can't charge high and give low service, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. But you know what? There is always a market for the client who recognizes the value of exceptional service and is happy to pay for it. Because there's so much poor service out there in everything that we do, in, like I said, in, the experience, even if it's an experience at going to a restaurant, I mean, look, do any of us think that the $25, piece of chicken is, it's like, you could make it at home for $4, but, it's the added value that the restaurant is giving you. And as interior designers, you have to think about that. How are you adding value to your client's experience? Because if you continually add value to your client experience, then you're going to be able to command those rates. Kim Cutable was on the show. She's another business coach that just talked about this as well. So,
I mean, to add to that, you go to a restaurant and say you get a chicken and it's not cooked the right way. There's so many different attitudes you could have towards that. The waiter could be like, fine, and take it back and get you another one and still charge you. Or it could be that they, I think humility goes a very long way. And that's what we try to do is, we're going to make mistakes. We're human. We mess this up. A, we're going to make sure we fix it. B, we're not going to charge you while we fix it. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to try to point fingers at other people. We're going to take full responsibility.
Right. You clean up your own mess.
Yes. And there's so many people that try to, the subs, if we ever deal with subs that do that, like, I didn't do it, he did it. They're the worst. You don't use them. Bye-bye.
It's the worst. You know what I say? Yeah. I want to deal with grown-ups. You're not a grown-up. Next, out of the line.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another thing is we try to keep ourselves as humble as possible. And, if we made a mistake, admit it right away and let them know we're going to take care of it. And rather than, make excuses for ourselves.
Yeah. Isn't the worst excuse the apology with the but?
Yeah,
I'm really sorry this happened, but my, guy did this, or but that happened this. It's like, whatever. No. So I love it. You're a smart lady, Andrea.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you.
Seriously, you have a nice firm on your hands, and I am really in great admiration of the way you have powered through and created it for yourself. And of course, the Think and Grow Rich, honestly, it is a life-changing book. It definitely is. So tell us what's anything exciting and new coming up for Andrea Schumacher Interiors this coming year?
Well, I'm trying now to, I get antsy. So I'm like, okay, what's the next thing going to be? Like, okay, we've got Denver down sort of, and we feel we have a good sort of well-oiled machine at the firm, and I want to do something else that brings more to the table. So I am trying to kind of go outside my comfort zone, out of state, and do more national things. So I have, I joined Design Leadership Network, which is a group of designers who get together once a year, and they have a summit, and they talk about design, and they talk about how their firms run, and then you can really kind of rub shoulders with the creme de la creme of designers really around the world and ask them how they run their business. So I'm excited to be a part of that.
Is that the group with Susan Brunstrom?
No, Rebecca Birdwell.
Okay.
And the summit this year, last year it was in Portugal. This year it's Miami, and kind of crosses over with Miami Design Week and Art Basel. And then there's a couple days in Cuba with an architecture tour, which is exciting. But I'm talking, these designers are, Timothy Corrigan and Nina Campbell and, big designers that are
and
part
do
of
you just ask to join? I mean,
no, you have to be inducted. You have to have been invited and have reference letters from other designers that
I was going to say, it doesn't sound like the kind of group you just knock on the door and
No.
say, hi, can I get in?
Right, exactly. No.
So that's a nice coup for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, thank you. So we'll be doing that, and then I don't know what I'll learn from that, but I'm happy to have another podcast with you and explain.
Definitely.
And then I am trying to do some work just outside of Colorado. So I am submitting to KIPSPay, and we'll see what happens there. I probably won't get in because I know I'm just a Colorado designer over here, but sometimes it takes a couple tries, and we'll see there. And I am going to do an Instagram takeover in October at High Point.
Okay.
So they have like 60,000 followers, and so I'll take over their Instagram for a day and take pictures of what I like and and hopefully gain some followers by doing that. And I think I'm going to be designing a dog bed with one of the vendors at High Point. And then I am going to go to Maison Objet in Paris this year and hopefully sit on a panel there, and just doing some things like that that are sort of more national, international, and see where that takes me. I'm going to give it a year because it's hard on my family. I have kids, and it takes.
I was just going to say, do you have children or anything that you have to manage through all this?
Yes, and so I had to have a sit down with my husband and my kids and say, is this something that we as a family decide it's okay to do? So we're just for 1 year. And we'll see what happens.
It's a big commitment when, for either of the parents in the house, but particularly for the mother. And I'm not, biased about that at all. I mean, really. But I mean, truthfully, yes. How old are your children, Andrea?
I have a daughter who's almost 8 and a son who's almost 12.
Okay. That's
so pretty good ages where they're, self-sufficient-ish. And
yes.
So I think it'll be okay.
Very nice. But you're right. It's no different than your clients. You have to sit down ahead of the project and have agreements. Very well. It really sounds like a lot of fun things coming up for you this year. I mean, I can't imagine between all of this and what your operations manager is doing and all the fabulous design that the rest of you girls are putting out there. You're going to quadruple your business.
We'll see.
Very exciting. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. You really taught us a lot of really specific things. I really enjoyed getting to know you.
Good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, I'm very sure that many of the designers that we've spoken to over the last 9-10 months have probably had similar holy moly come to Jesus moments from a financial standpoint, even though they haven't shared them with us. I think that it probably happens more often than we realize, that a meeting with your accountant ends with him or her saying to you, you owe $75,000 in taxes. I mean, talk about a wake-up call. And I would just say, if this hasn't happened to you, but you do know that you are not taking responsibility for your business in this area, please get on it. You heard Andrea. It's not enough to have an accountant. She had an accountant. And what she said was she didn't take the time to really understand that side of her business and what was going on so that she was clued in as it was happening. And if you recall Diane Gardner, episode 54, go back and listen to that. She said exactly the same thing. She said an accountant is merely someone who reports and documents what has happened in your business, whereas a tax coach explains to you options, strategies, steps that you need to take before the things happen so that your business is set up from a financial standpoint in the right way. Now, Andrea has this locked down. She's got Chandra. And not only does Chandra help her figure out her goals financially, quarterly, yearly, make the plans, she helps her take the temperature throughout the year to be sure that they're on track all throughout the year and being profitable and efficient from a financial standpoint. Andrea also talked about her philosophy on the client experience and on client management, as well as her philosophy on giving 5-star service to each of her clients. So for your free bullet point list of the things I learned from Andrea Schumacher, go to www.windowworks-nj.com/Andrea S. So it's High Point market time, just about the time the show is coming on. And remember that Andrea is going to be taking over their Instagram for a day. Be sure to find it and follow her, comment on her, give her some boost there, and let her know that you're watching. And also let her know if you heard her on the show. So lastly, guys, the iTunes reviews are coming in. Leslie, thank you for yours this week. I'm very happy. I'm very thrilled and very proud every time I read them, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate them. And we're getting more and more people over at Facebook at WindowWorks NJ joining us each week. So keep coming on over there and talking to me and let me know what's going on in your businesses. All righty. So thanks so much for joining me today. Have a great day. Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.